Welcome back to our continuing coverage on the preliminary report, the 15-page report of the Aircraft Accident Investigation Board that has now been submitted to the Ministry of Civil Aviation. It's up on their website, and it gives us some preliminary clues, some answers as to why Air India Flight 171 from Ahmedabad to London Gatwick crashed. And it is going in the direction of the fuel control switch. Those two switches that you see, they're called the fuel control switch. They are the ones that allow the movement of the fuel from the fuel chamber, from the fuel tank, out into the carburetor, and from the carburetor into the engines. The engines require the fuel to be fired up and to give the aircraft lift and thrust and power. That fuel control switch was moved from run to cutoff, and then back again from cutoff to run after the pilots realized that the fuel had been cut off from entering the engines. So the 787 fuel control switches, like I said, there are only two modes there, and it has to be manually done. There's a run mode if the switches are in the up position, and there is a cutoff mode if the switches are in the down position. Now these switches are controlled only either at the start of the flight or after the flight has ended. Now it is not ever moved mid-flight. Something happened inside the cockpit of Air India Flight 171, which resulted in these fuel control switches being moved from the run mode to the cutoff mode, and as a result, immediately the flight lost thrust, it lost power. Now, this is not an easy thing to do. It cannot be done electronically, it cannot be done remotely, it cannot be done by somebody from outside the cockpit. It has happened inside the cockpit because there is a metal stop lock. Now, what you need to do is you have to manually pull both the levers. It has to cross over that metal lock switch and then be placed either down or up. There are also these two metal brackets. They're called the guarded brackets, which are on either side, because in case one captain's hand or the other co-pilot's hand hits these levers, that they don't accidentally move either up or down. So it's an extremely well-designed mechanism, and clearly on board Air India Flight 171, something happened whereby manually the cutoff switches were moved from run to cutoff. The pilots realized that. One pilot asks the other, it's not identified in the report which pilot asked the other, but one pilot asks the other, why did you cut off the switches? Why did you cut off the fuel? And the other pilot replies, no, I did not. Now, we don't know which pilot asked which pilot this question and what the answer was, but we know that one pilot certainly asked the question, why did you cut off the fuel cutoff switches? And the other pilot replies, no, I did not. Let's try and find out more about this. What are these fuel cutoff switches? It has to be operated manually. It cannot be operated electronically. Could there be any kind of mechanical failure, electrical failure that leads to these switches to be snapped? Or has it necessarily have to happen by manual action by either the pilot or the co-pilot? Arunima is here with us. She's been tracking the story ever since the crash happened on the 12th of June. Today, incidentally, is exactly 1 month since that. Tell us what this preliminary finding says about why these fuel control switches moved from run to cutoff.
Okay, so the report is not conclusive. It is not reaching any conclusion, and hence the confusion. However, it is pointing out two things. One, that engine lost power, and that was the likely cause for the crash. So all the other theories that we had considered so far, bird hit, that has been negated, fuel contamination, that has been negated, weather condition, that has been negated as well. So if we finally know why the crash happened, it is because fuel was cut off to the engine. Why was the fuel cut off? To that, the answer in this preliminary report is that the fuel control switch went from the cutoff mode to the run mode, and the movement from cutoff, why it was cut off, we don't know. But the pilots, it appeared, tried to put it on the run mode, but the time was not enough, even though one of the engines tried to gain power, but the timing of the entire crash, the timeline is such that it looks like there was not enough time available for the engine to restart. The big question which is unanswered in this report is, how did the fuel switch, and we are showing you on air as well, there are two switches. How do they work? Can you just mistakenly land your hand or your palm on it and it can operate? No, that's what experts tell us. There's a spring, you have to physically lift it up and then move it from cutoff to run, and you can mistakenly do it with one of the two levers, but how is it that fuel was cut off to both the engines? That's a big question that has been left unanswered. Also, if this was a mechanical failure, then towards the conclusion of this report, what the AAIB says is that at this stage, Neither GE, which is the engine manufacturer, nor Boeing have been asked to carry on any further tests or checks about mechanical failure. That makes it even more intriguing about what really happened with these fuel control switches.
So let's also bring in our guests. So we know a couple of things. The